Good afternoon, everybody. I am Randy Horton, Chief Solutions Officer at Orthogonal. I want to thank you all to logging on today's webinar. We know you have very busy schedules. You have a lot of things you could choose to do with your time. So investing an hour or so in the topic of the playbook for running a multi-partner engineering organization, that's what you'll spend the next hour on. And we're really going to try and pack, several hours worth of good content for you into about 1 hour. We organize these webinars about once a month to bring together industry experts like our expert today, Amir Zur from Olympus, who have great insights about best practices to help all of us accelerate software as a medical device. Uh, Two quick things before we get going. First of all, we really value your feedback on these webinars. So give us brutally candid feedback. Tell us what works, what doesn't work. We'd love to hear your suggestions for future topics. I will be contacting you. There's a good chance you'll hear from me. So do me a favor and give me a couple minutes and reply either by email or phone if you can. I'd welcome to hear. Second of all, we didn't used to say this, but people said that we should because it was weird to attend a webinar and not know who was hosting it. So very quickly, Orthogonal is a software development consultancy. We got into this business to help accelerate patient outcomes faster. The way we do it is by working with medical device manufacturers to help them accelerate the development of software as a medical device and connected device systems. And the way we do it is by taking the modern disciplines of software engineering and product management, not even really from the healthcare world, from the tech world, the best of those, infusing those with MedTech's focus on safety and device effectiveness in a way that raises the bar. So it's not just that we can build better medical devices than ever before, faster than before, but we believe we can fundamentally raise the bars on safety and quality with modern software methods. So that's why we're here today. And that's why we bring together discussions like this, because we think they're really exciting. So today's topic, again, is the playbook for running a multi-partner engineering organization. I'll introduce our panelists in a few seconds. First of all, we will be done within 1 hour with the core topic. That's our promise to you. So if you have a lunchtime available or something, you can get in and on that time. However, if there are more questions, we will stay on for longer, and frequently there are. So we're happy to keep talking after that. So our goal here is to get you some good insights. So let me start actually by asking our guests to introduce themselves. There's some really interesting backgrounds actually for the panelists on the phone today. Amir, let's start with you. Who are you? What did you do wrong to get here?
Hello, everyone. I got a nice invite from you, Randy, to talk about this interesting subject about how we can structure teams to support digital health for medical device development. So I have an experience in pharma, both in pharma and medical device, currently focused on the medical device industry, but before heading digital health products at Teva Pharmaceuticals and Takeda, focusing on building digital health solutions together with the drug as a drug device combination. And this is a focus of how we can build digital devices and technology to enable the better impact for our patients, both through the drug or through the treatment. So one of the main challenges that I was thinking as developing different products for pharma and medical device companies, basically the structure of the teams. And how do you build versus buy? How do you make sure that you have the right team for success? You have the right talent and skills in-house, or how do you partner, which is not less important of how you build your teams internally. So this topic is very close to my heart. So definitely happy to share my thoughts today.
Great. Well, we're thrilled to have you. Larkin, first of all,
Yeah, hi.
you did get the memo about the shirt.
I did. I got the memo. Yeah. Larkin Lowry, so CTO of Orthogonal, joined in that role relatively recently, but I was a client of Orthogonal back in 2019 when I was brought in to help a digital health organization get back on their feet. I've spent most of my career in, say, IoT spaces, connected device spaces outside of medical device. Really didn't get in to the medical device space until that 2019 engagement. But once I got in, I was hooked. Love the experience, love the technology, love the people involved, and really enjoyed working with Orthogonal as an external vendor that we brought in to help us with the transformation of the organization. So that was a great example of the benefits of bringing in a third party to bring in new ideas, new perspectives, and new capabilities.
All right, and Bernhard.
Yeah, Bernhard Kappa, founder and CEO of Orthogonal. Obviously, we have been acting as a partner for medical device companies for quite some time. Hard Larkin have had great conversations with Amir and looking forward to having further conversations today.
Excellent. So let's start with what could be a basic question. Let's talk about the reasons why, and also I should say here, the title of this topic feels like the most self-serving. Here's why you should hire Orthogonal webinar ever. And we really we waited a long time to do this, but the reason we called it was because we actually had a lot of conversations with organizations say, I'd like to figure out how to bring in somebody to help me or work with me for different reasons we'll get into, but I can't figure out how to crack the nut. What are the best practices? So there actually was a call for this webinar. It wasn't just, the subtitle, this is not why you should hire Orthogonal and not anybody else. Okay, so all that said, what are the reasons you would want an external partner in the first place? Or was that to all of you?
Amir or Larkin, you guys want to start?
Well, I guess I can jump in, right? So, I alluded to this with my introduction, right? So, very often companies will get into a condition where they are struggling to achieve growth, right? You had that maybe meteoric rise during a startup phase or a high growth phase, and then you end up plateauing a bit, struggling to continue to accelerate or develop additional velocity. And you look for reasons to solve that particular problem. A lot of times the problem is a lack of maybe outside perspective, right? Outside blood. You have an established team at this point. You're cranking along, you're doing your thing, but you're really not bringing in a lot of new people from the outside to bring in those fresh ideas, right? So one reason why you might do this is just to inject a little bit of new DNA into your organization to get that additional perspective. There is also an additional challenge of good, solid, skilled, and competent people are hard to find, and you may be struggling to hire and to be able to build that team organically yourself. That it can be easier to bring in a vendor that already has the team. They are already effective at doing their work. They're able to come in, essentially parachute into your organization and be effective on day one, which you would not be able to achieve if you're trying to grow organically. Those are two reasons why I have been brought in and engaged with firms in similar situations. But I think Amir's perspective is actually quite different and really very interesting to me.
Sure, thank you, Larkin. I totally agree with this fresh DNA that super important to bring to your project, especially now that we are having transformations in big companies, medical device and pharma, growing for digital health and adding the devices, AI and software as a medical device to the basic portfolio. And then you need some new knowledge and skills and talent, and you cannot always find it internally. And the hiring process of bringing this experience on board sometimes is challenging. So partner with the external development house to help you with existing knowledge, to bring insight from the industry, reuse some of the work that has been done before with other customers. I think that always, in my experience, very important. And of course, there is also the integration and the cost of onboarding, and you have to make sure that you keep this team for the long term, so you can have the right benefits. But I think that the main value of bringing those external partners is to make sure that we keep building capabilities in-house. And you can always choose like what kind of capabilities specifically missing as you're building your new department or your new projects, and making sure that you partner with someone that already done that before and can help you to be fast going into your development journey.
What about just, I need more bodies? I've got a bunch of work the next 6 months and I need more bodies.
Yeah, I think that's always, especially talking about big companies having a quick ramp up and source hiring of external employees with, again, specific expertise. That's always could be challenging internally, right? So having a good partner with the right experience that can help you to deal with those changes, right? Those peaks in demand for employees. Sometimes internally it can take months until you have your hiring plans and approvals, and usually this could be for long term. So for short-term solutions and having an immediate build, it's very appealing to go to work with your partner. And also I can give a few examples. At Teva, we built a validation team for the digital drug, the first digital drug that was launched for asthma patients in the US, going through the FDA approval. It was almost impossible to build quick enough validation and quality teams internally. So partnering with the team that already been doing that and integrate them into the overall development cycle was very helpful to accelerate this program.
Right, but I think one of the things that's really key about what you said, right, is bringing in a package, right? Not just simply, I need 20 more software engineers, but you are bringing in a balanced team that can perform all of the activities around that particular need that you have. So, one of the things that is transforming the entire world in every respect at this point is generative AI and AI tooling contributing to the work that we're doing on a daily basis. Certainly within software, this has been, a topic on fire, right? It is high acceleration right now, very impactful for businesses. There are a lot of companies that instead of going out and contracting with a vendor to bring in 5 new software developers, they can implement Gen AI tools right now to get the work done that they need done with the people that they currently have. So, I foresee, like, in the next few years, as these tools continue to mature and things are continuing to rebalance, that there are going to be a lot of companies that are going to be able to say, well, we don't necessarily need to bring in the vendor for these 6 or 8 or 10 software engineers that we happen to need, be able to supplement that with some of the AI tooling. Now, once we get a little bit further down the road and the use of AI tooling is much more pervasive, it essentially levels the playing field and we get right back into the mode that we're in now, right? So we have to think about the effect that this is going to have only in the next maybe 3 or 4 years before really things get properly rebalanced. But kind of back to Amir's point about you're not really necessarily wanting to bring in the vendor in a team because you need 10 identical software engineers. You're going to bring in a team that has a team capability, right? Where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, where they are performing a function as a team rather than just simply being a collection of individual bodies, right? That for me is the greatest value of bringing in an external vendor.
It's a much more strategic play in your mind.
Well, it can be, but it can also be very tactical, like, in what Amir was describing, a verification or a validation team, right? Like, you may have a very specific targeted need where they need to come in and do a particular job for 3 months, right? That could be a very tactical activity. You need them to be completely effective and autonomous in that period of time, right? So you need them to be completely able to handle all the activities, know how to integrate in with your business, and function with minimal oversight. Now, and again, I'm putting a lot of words in Amir's mouth, right? But he was also saying that there is a strategic value in having this partner be a long-term partner, so that whatever business knowledge that is gained by the vendor during the initial work with you, that they don't just take it away and you don't just lose the value of that training. But I think Amir has a lot more to say on really what that strategic value is.
Yeah, I can think that basically, totally agree, Larkin. I would separate it to solving a local problem, right? When you have to go through a peak in your project, or you have to source someone specific, or to augment your team to meet your deadline. So this is kind of like you have your partner. And usually I used to work with the existing partners, because then it's easy, like they know what you need. The process should be easier, and also you kind of like already had this integration between the partner and the company, so you know what to expect. So even if you need to add people here and there, it could be easier. From the strategic perspective, I would say basically this is for the long term. If you would like to build new projects, if you would like to build new area, right, at the company, so you want to make sure to bring this new expertise. And this something that you might think about going to end-to-end delivery model, right? Having, okay, currently I don't have the power to extend my teams, but I do want to scale, so I can bring this external team to help me with, I would say, soft integration to the overall company. And this can help you later on, as you can bring these knowledge and skills into your organization. So I would say there are two approaches that basically I saw both of them working in the past. It's just a matter what you like to build.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different use cases you end up, dealing with. I think there's one, uh, certainly if you are, in the early stages of building up something, let's say here in SAMD, right? And you're coming from we're a hardware company, we don't necessarily know how to do software development. We know medical device, we don't know software development, or ideally, what you want to do is optimize and bring best practices in that work for acceleration and for higher quality, but doing that within quality management. If that's the situation you're in, there certainly can be a great benefit and a lot of speed in bringing in the right partner to do that kind of work, right? Another circumstance might be, you did this a while ago, but things are going very, very slowly, and you maybe have a very large team doing things, and the perception is maybe we're not getting the maximum value out of it. Um, and in that case, there may be an opportunity to bring in, a fresh set of eyes and potentially best practices, and then, work with you to transform that, right? So we see both of those, and I think that's a place where you can really accelerate and transform.
So let me ask the cynic's question, and this is a well-earned cynicism, right? I brought in an outside consultant. They were extremely expensive. The hourly rates were a lot higher. I spent a ton of time explaining to them what we do and basically teaching them what we already know how to do. They didn't do it very well. They weren't very committed to the results, right? And in the end, the opportunity cost was huge. Or the joke I could make was that, I won't say the specific firm. There used to be a joke that when you hired one of the big consulting partners back in the day, that the first thing you'd shake hands with the senior partner, and then the next thing they do is they'd back up a school bus, And all
Mhm.
these people who are fresh out of, an 8-week coding school will get off the school bus and run in at crazy rates to bill you. So why doesn't it have to be that way? Why can't it be more strategic then? Let me ask that.
So I think, and by the way, I know exactly what company you're talking about. Very, very famous or infamous, I guess I would say. So, in my travels as a consultant and helping companies really turn around software engineering organizations, it always came down to the business as a whole, or potentially the leadership of the company, not really understanding software. And Bernhard alluded to this. You're a hardware company, software's not your thing. How do you know how to bring in a software vendor, right? This is not your thing. It's not your expertise. You're not comfortable with software. How do you know that this vendor is not going to do exactly what Randy said and pull up a bus load full of people that really don't have solid engineering skills, and then they just waste your money, right? So a part to me that is really important is that the vendor needs to be able to help you understand how this work is going to fit and integrate into your organization, right? And not just simply come in and say, I will do what you ask me to do. Because in that case, they're really not adding value if they're only coming in to do what you've told them to do. So I think they need to be truly consultants. They need to be educators as well, and they need to help you as a business improve. And Amir touched on this earlier, right? It's helping to inject new DNA, new knowledge, new skills and understandings, new capabilities into your organization, right? Not just simply providing software engineering resources, for example.
Yeah, I would say, Larkin, that just to add on top of that, we are now in the middle of a big transformation, right? When technology, pharma, devices, they all meet together, right? So pharma would go into this technology landscape, same as devices would go toward the patient. Technology would go towards health. So you see this kind of like merge. And this transformation means that big companies, they need to transform, they need to change the DNA, but they don't have this expertise in-house. So this integration with external partners, that especially if those partners in the past they had this experience of providing services for both pharma and medical devices and tech company. So they kind of like see, and they can bring the holistic view of the overall development cycle, which is very missing right now, as again we are in the middle of transformation. So I saw that many times in the past, like both Teva and Takeda, and currently also with Olympus. How do you build this process? How you make sure that you have the most efficient QMS, and how you make sure that what you test, what you verify and validate, right? And how you build your architecture of your solution. And those needs can come from inside, but probably this is not enough. This is where you need consultants, you need to hire the right people, you need partners, and you want to make sure that you have this knowledge and capabilities in-house so you can deliver.
Amir, how do you draw that line between which things I can have with a partner who's long-term, which things I can have with a partner who's more temporary, which things really I have to have the long-term knowledge in my employee base? How do you think through that?
Yeah, that's always a good question. We had many discussions about that in different experiences, the build versus buy, and when you decide to augment your teams and go to explore outside, basically. So, like I would say, usually the cost of ramp up is high, especially if you are talking about regulated products in this field, as you need to train for the specific QMS, and you need to define those roles and responsibilities. They need to have the right access, and they need to merge into the culture, right, in order to be effective. And this is where you have the cost of integration. So you want to make sure that you have this long-term partnership. So I would say if you have a new area, and again, I will go with an example. It's always more helpful to use. At Teva, when we launched the first digital drug to the market, we had to build all support end to end for our patients using the digital drug. And usually in pharma, you have the R&D support for the drug, but this is not the same like supporting technology and how you use technology. Both support for patients and physician. This is for basically holistic assimilation for the overall end-to-end ecosystem. And so how you support, you have to build your support system. And in order to do that, you need a platform, you need the technology, you need the people sitting there and answering phone calls in different time zones. So for that, we decided to go end-to-end delivery team that will take. So this was for us a good threshold to say, okay, this is a new area, this is end-to-end delivery. It would be better to build the whole team using one of our vendors instead of building that internally specific for this product, because it's very different from the DNA that we used to have at the company. So this is an example for something that I would definitely recommend to go and look outside and build your teams. There are some other examples. For example, if you need some specific knowledge that will serve not only this project, like product managers, for example, and you need them to be familiar with any stakeholders, not only the name, but also the personality and how to approach and speak the language. And especially talking about this transformation, it is related to many of our stakeholders, right? Talking from privacy, legacy, regulatory, quality, legal, manufacturing, it's end to end. So for that, the metrics is very, I would say, very high burden to get to know those and to be proficient in that. So I would grow this talent internally. So those are a few considerations of where I will draw the line of what to have as an internal power versus going to search with our partners.
There's a particular complication, though, I think, with some of this, which is the way that people are compensated, right? So when you are an employee of a company, you have a very different compensation mechanism than your vendor will have with that particular same person, right? And to a certain extent, for that employee, they have not just a very different compensation model, but they have a vested interest in the business for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it can be bonus, it can be stock options, whatever it is. That does tend to lead to very different decision making than if you are somebody, say, at a vendor who is going to get paid the same either way, right? Whether it works out or it doesn't work out. So, I think there can be certain types of engagements where you need somebody to do something uniformly and reliably, right? Where this is maybe not so much of a factor. But then there could be a case where you need to bring a new DNA to bring in a new capability. It is something that is going to be impactful for your presence in the marketplace, and you need people to have a bit of a different motivation than what you have with a standard vendor. So I'm kind of curious, Amir, like if the nature of the compensation was ever a factor in the cases where you've brought in a vendor, and did you ever see a difference in motivation between an employee and a vendor consultant contractor?
That's a really good question, Larkin. And yeah, I did see in the past some differences. And how do you ensure, right? And again, I love going by examples. So one of the past vendors always had delays with trainings, right? With your employees, you can put it as part of their KPIs and bonus, right? It can impact your compensation. With the partner, how do you convince them, right, to have this training on time and to deliver for what the company needs. So we always had challenges with that. So you have to build your partnership with a vendor that can help you. First, you have enough tools to motivate, right, and build a compensation model. Even if this is a partner, still have this structure of how to motivate the best employees and how to make sure that they're well integrated. And you want to appreciate those that can be a star, right, and bring them more work. And so, like, I would definitely treat them as I treat my employees, right? Although I have different tools, but still the same goal, right? To keep motivated, to make sure that they will be appreciated, that like they will compensated. And I think that once you do that, then the differences will not be so impactful, right? You can still manage it in a way that you can treat this team as your own team.
All right, so are you saying, I think what I'm hearing you say, which is very interesting, is that you don't treat your partner as a black box, like I do this, you do that, you're responsible for this. You actually think about how to make the partner organization more successful for you.
In some scenarios, yes. Sometimes you would like to have this black box, right? Define the deliverables and then this end-to-end project, and this is a different scenario. Mostly with the scenarios when we like to have this team integrated. So yes, like you, and I remember having this structure, an agreement with the partner that we can have access, right, to the employees and have them be part of the team, right? Come to celebrations, come to team meetings, having ideas. Sometimes they are not even feel comfortable to come with new ideas, and many good ideas can come uh, uh, from this partner because they have this experience. They did it with another customer, right? So you want to make sure to leverage and to build the stage for them so they will feel comfortable. I think you can maximize their impact by doing that.
Interesting.
No,
Bernhard,
I agree.
yeah, Bernhard, I'd love to hear your perspectives on this, having sold many consulting engagements over time. Some have been incredibly successful long-term, some less so probably, right? So
Yeah, I think again, where being realistic in understanding where you are as a company or as an organization, how mature you are, and where you really have strengths, and where you have weaknesses, and being honest with yourself around some of that, right? So there are things sometimes where you see um the symptoms that you aren't really a high performing organization. um and then the question becomes, are you willing to do what's necessary to change to become a high performing organization, right? That's one of those questions. Do you have the capacity to do that? There are a lot of times where you ask for a partner, but you treat them as a vendor, or and that can be very difficult. So um, being clear as an organization as to what you are trying to achieve and what your actual situation is super important. That's one area where you can end up with really, really sort of just perpetuating an issue as opposed to actually solving it, right? Sometimes, for example, you can see the situation where we internally we can't get things done quickly enough. So let's have more partners, bring more people in, but keep doing things the way we have been doing them. That typically, isn't going to solve your problem of actually, getting more things done more quickly, right? So, you know, we've seen this before where there are a lot of you know, you look at it, you've got waterfall processes in-house, lots of big design up front. You have architecture that is lift and shift of things that are maybe best practices 10, 15 years ago or even longer, and you're trying to do this same thing on the cloud now. And we see those things sometimes where really you could be doing this and getting 2 to 3 times the value if you change and do things differently, right? But that's hard to do if your people don't know or you don't have the right incentives. So realizing where are you at and is this really, really a problem for you? Do you even perceive where you are compared to best practices or where you could be in terms of that? That's, having that knowledge, I think is super important to get the most out of, whether that's partnering or, hiring internally to do that. It's you want those skills and that knowledge in-house. Sometimes you need that from a partner externally to help you along the way.
So self-awareness is key. Whether you
Absolutely.
get
Right,
there on
but
your own or use a partner to help you figure out the self-awareness.
Yeah.
right, but it's not always necessarily a problem of I need somebody to help straighten me out, right? It can be I'm doing pretty good, but guess what? I also have a continuous improvement program. I'm always looking for ways to improve. I want to see what the vendor has to say, right? Maybe they come back and they say you're already doing everything you need to be doing. It's all good. Or maybe they say, hey, here's a suggestion of something that you could try that's different, right? It's a company that is a very healthy, well-functioning organization can still benefit from bringing in this fresh blood to get that additional fresh perspective.
Excellent. So we actually got an exceptionally large number of very good, specific, not too narrow questions from this webinar, which is unusual. Usually we get some really, really narrow ones, or I get a question that's like the question is software. So I want to dive in on some of these because I think they hit it. The first one is, well, there's a couple different angles to this. How do you evaluate a vendor? How do you find the right vendor? How do you evaluate them on culture, cost, skills, organization, all of those things. Let's start with that general question.
Yeah, if I may pick this, I think that you touched some of the good ones, right? Like you want, so first you want to make sure that you can scale this up, right? Like if you have a vendor who's too small that can support you only for this specific thing, sometimes it can be a solution for a local problem, but then it will be hard for you to scale. And assuming that each engagement will have kind of like a fee, right, of integration and ramp up, you want to make sure that you have a vendor that can help you with the cross-functional areas, right? So you don't need to reintegrate again in your vendor. So I think that the scale and the option to move between different areas. For example, if you go to development, there is also potential for building automation and validation and support. So you go through this end-to-end life cycle. I think that will be an important aspect. Another one, of course, you want to make sure that the flexibility is there, right? Flexibility to support you, because not always you know what you need in advance. So you build it together with your vendor. So your vendor becomes your partner in a way. But I had a few examples in during my career that building from vendor it became a partner when you start to think about your strategy, and sometimes the vendor will build a team for you, right? Even if it didn't exist. Um, Again, for example, Teva, going for example, building this V&V team specifically for what we needed for our digital drug. This didn't exist before. So the flexibility and the ability of the vendor to grow and to develop and to extend and to be a partner, I think that's a key for success. And of course, the other items that you mentioned, those are the obvious ones that, knowledge and skills and being able to support with your in your time zones and give you like this. Sometimes you would need it 24/7, and also access for equipment, because as we're talking about SAMD, sometimes you need to build the SAMD on a device, right? Or you need to have it as part of your manufacturing life cycle. So you want it to be integrated into your specific physical site. So also the ability to be close, right? Not always remote, to where you need them. So I would say basically for me, the most important would be this flexibility to grow and bring the right knowledge. And sometimes if you need to hire someone, because sometimes hiring someone with your vendor could be easier than hiring someone at the company. So I would say that this kind of mindset will be very important for selecting a vendor.
Let me ask a follow-on question. Larkin, Bernard, I'll get to you, but I want to drill in a second with him. You're on something. So you like examples. I would love it. This is unfair because I didn't give you any warning on this question. So feel free to, to snap and say pass or whatever. But can you think of specific examples of either conversations you've had with vendors where you've heard something and been like, not the right one? Like, things that were clues to you, like this is not who I need. Or similarly, how have you found your most successful vendor partners over time? Has it been they came knocking on your door, they were referred to you, you already knew the person? So I'll throw that out.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're right. That's an interesting question, and I think for an interesting question, I would say depends. Right? um, it it could be your network, your experience, different colleagues that used to work with a specific vendor. They can recommend. You can see something that they created and they built in the past that's very similar to what you need. So first of all, I would say that can be helpful. You ask about um, what not work, right? I would say it's basically, of course, if you don't have the knowledge or experience, then you need to hire someone and to rebuild this knowledge base from scratch. Also, not having, as we discussed before, this flexibility, right? You say, okay, this is the only way that we work, and this is the interface, and this is the period of time, and this is the cost, and this is like the way that we get requirements, right? So I appreciate that sometimes it can be built, and this is the structure and the way that it works. But sometimes when you work with vendors, you would like to have this flexibility and to be open mind and to be able to open your structure a little bit to support different things, because it is different. Like you would like to inject, as Larkin mentioned before, you'd like to inject this DNA, but you would like also this DNA to be merged smoothly, right? So you would like it to be open and successful. This is why I would say like being flexible and being able to develop together with the company, I think would be a key.
Right. And I think that's really, really super important. I would say maybe flexibility maybe has a different connotation than maybe adaptability. But so I guess we're at the slight different angle I was going to go at was that, there are, for me, three kinds of vendors. There's the vendor that comes in and says, whatever you want, we'll do it. We do it all the time. We can do it. Whatever you ask us to do, we'll just do it. Right. And there, for me, that's a red flag that they don't actually understand what you need. And they're just trying to promise whatever they can to get you to send them a check. On the other extreme, there's the vendor that listens to your needs and then tells you what they normally do is their standard practice, right? That has very little to do with your actual particular needs, but they're a one-trick pony. They always do things one way, and they just tell you what their one way is, and it's a take it or leave it kind of a thing. What I really like is the vendor that's in the middle and has more of that flexibility, adaptability that Amir's talking about, where they listen to what your needs are and what your concerns are, what your motivation is, and they produce a dynamic solution that takes their strengths, combines it with your particular needs, and produces a novel solution, right? If your vendor is not able to come up with a novel solution that fits you, they either don't understand your needs or they're not just a good fit for you because they don't do what you happen to need to do. So I think part of it is really coming up with that unique and novel solution for you, the business. And most of the time, the businesses that we're in are not doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing because we're all trying to innovate. We're trying to develop new products and new solutions and new medical devices, new pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. And so we need to have vendors that are going to be customizing based upon the particular needs that exist, right? So does the vendor listen to you? Do they produce a set of recommendations that are adapting to what your particular needs are? Do they seem like the kind of vendor that is what Amir was describing, that they are going to be dynamic and working with you, or are they going to be rigid?
Bernard, any comments before going to the next question?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that you should look at both internally and as well as with your vendors, right? Amir had mentioned earlier that sort of cost of initial ramp up and integration, right? This is something that a vendor will deal with very often, right? And typically they've developed some ways of making that easier, right? And so we see this in, SAMD development where there are a certain set of things that you need to figure out which quality management system, who's doing what are those interfaces like. That's all stuff that you want to really figure out very early on and have a playbook, not sort of it must be done this way, but how you figure that out. What a quality agreement might look like, what those integrations are. If that is something I would look at and ask a vendor, how do you integrate, right? We see this a lot where there are companies that are pretty good at doing that integration. I'm speaking as a vendor now, right? That have that well worked out, and others that really don't or haven't done that. That's part of our initial discovery as well as how easy will it be for us to integrate and where do we have to do work to make that integration happen smoothly. I think that's a really important conversation and probably also a good filtering mechanism as well.
Interesting. So let me drill in on this a little more. A couple people asked interesting questions about basically saying, hey, if you're running a multi-partner engineering organization in MedTech, that's not just engineers to engineers. You've got quality and regulatory on the in-house side, and you might have some of that on the consulting side as well. So how do you engage your internal people to do the additional partner assessment? Do you engage them? And then how do you make that successful once the project starts? So you're not just, leaving your Q&R people saying, I don't know who I'm supposed to talk to about what, somebody calls me, I don't know where they're coming from.
Who wants to take it? I can take it if no one
Go
else will.
for it, Bernard. You kick it off.
Yeah, I'm certainly eager to hear what Amir and Larkin have to say on this. Look, if it depends on the nature of what you are having people do and how you envision that partnership happening, right? So if you're in the business of building medical devices and medical device software, and those partners are going to be building SAMD for you, um, are they working within your quality management system? Are you going to be basically leading them through that, or are they going to be, you know, working more independently within that, or are you going to be doing things within their quality management system for some system subsystem development with a design transfer and sort of integration at the system level, right? So, in those cases, yes, you don't if all you're doing is adding some engineering bodies to your teams, that's relatively straightforward. If what you're doing is something where you have more integrated teams where quality and systems engineering is part of your pod structure, then you've got to go figure that out. Where is the interface between you and the other folks? Certainly early on, that is part of those quality agreements, whether you have teams working within your QMS or in theirs. How are you going to be integrating quality, systems engineering, cybersecurity, user experience design, and human factors as part of the process? So it's really, you know, what are all of those things going to look like, and where does what you do end and what the vendor or the partner is doing start, right? Working that out and being able to replicate that if you are truly going to go to a multi-vendor thing is something that is really important to work through. There are ways that work better than others for that, right? There are models that exist out there, like Cisco, for example, that is definitely, much more of a we do the specifications, you go, you guys do the development, and are able to scale very well. That's a really, really well worked out model there. But there are others where, the integration is very different than that.
Right. Like more often than not, I find companies don't have clearly documented roles, responsibilities. They have tribal knowledge, right? These things grow organically over time and they shift like the sand dunes. And without clear roles and responsibilities, you can't integrate a third party vendor because what are they going to do? Like who is responsible for what? How do you hold people responsible, et cetera? Like how do you orchestrate, right, that relationship, as Bernhard was describing? And something that is related to this is, there's a perception that there can be a lot of friction in bringing in a new vendor. Oh, they'll never be able to get in and integrate within our environment because reasons, right? Too many procedures, too many people, too many touch points, technology, et cetera, et cetera. And those arguments are all signs that you have insufficient sort of modularity within your organization and or technology, right? So what we're talking about here is defining the modularity of your organization, understanding the roles and responsibilities, what those boundaries and interfaces are, even for your own internal people, even if you don't do it just because of you're trying to bring in a vendor. But if you have that and you do bring in the vendor, you then understand how that vendor integrates, your people understand how they integrate, and the vendor's people understand how they integrate.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Larkin is also could be relevant to. I saw the question on the chat from Frank asking about the model of how the best to onboard vendors. And again, those are the challenges of bringing new vendors to take specific roles when you have this non-clarity, right, about roles and responsibilities and processes. And sometimes it can be an advantage because those vendors or the augmented team can start asking questions, right? And they can bring experience from another customer about this is the way that the, that we build our product management team versus our validation team, and this is how we run our agile ceremonies, right? And build it as part of the whole validation process. So there are different type of processes that the vendors could bring and strengthen the ways of working at the company. But I would say not always this is easy. Sometimes it could be easier, and I also have this experience. We're talking about more like integrated teams, but sometimes the company will prefer to have a complete separate end-to-end project delivery. And it could be just from the reason that they would like to have a separate QMS, they would like to have it quick. Maybe they would like the vendor to be the legal manufacturer, right? Please provide us this box. We want this box to do this and this and this with this interface, right? Work according to your own QMS. It it could be much faster, right? As the vendor is building and using their QMS for a long time. So and then you have controls, you have quality agreement with the vendor, and then you source the delivery, the end delivery product. You integrate into the system, but then it's integration. It's not like a shared development process. So I would say sometimes that could be also a good approach. It depends like what you need. If this is not your core, I would say component in the system, and you would like to simplify your system integration, that could be not a bad approach to have this end delivery and again control the process uh, with your vendor, but get the all end-to-end delivery.
Go ahead. Thank you. All right, so I think people may start dropping off in a minute because we're almost an hour. So just want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank Amir. We got some more questions, but just for those who are dropping off, thank Amir for joining us on this. And reminders, we may reach out to you for feedback, so please reply if we do. And also, you know, if you want to further discuss any of these things, we're happy to talk. You can connect with Amir on LinkedIn. You can reach out to Orthogonal if you want to discuss this anymore or how we might be able to assist you if that's of interest to you. All right, so here's an interesting side question that somebody asked that I thought was pretty interesting. What if you need a partner for AI as opposed to software building an app? You know, what if you need a partner for data science or to, you know, to develop your LLMs? Do all the same principles apply?
That's a good question, I think, to summarize our discussion today. And I would say yes and no, right? Because sometimes you do want the AI as a separate component to be integrated to your system, to be like a completely separate expertise. Not always you have this AI knowledge, right? But sometimes you need to have the control of the data, right? And talking about who owns the data and privacy concerns, and how do you make sure that our customer is safe, right, in regarding the data and the AI usability. So there are some, I would say, challenges, and you need to make sure that those are brought into account while consider the partnership style with your vendor. But I would say that the majority of what we discussed today could be also relevant to AI as well.
Bernard, Larkin, any comment on this?
I mean, I think that that captures it fairly well. Again, what is it? What is it? Where are you coming from? What kind of what is your strategy as far as, you know, data in general and the value of data? What is it that you're trying to do with regard to AI, right? So, and then what skills and what do you have in-house, right? Right. The same stories around, is software kind of a foreign language, foreign country to you, or not really. Same thing with AI, right? Understanding where you're at. The baseline of who has access to that data, how are you managing that data, how are you being safe, both in terms of privacy, in terms of your rights of using that data, et cetera, apply. And you got to be very careful in terms of both your legal agreements and your usage of data at the baseline, right? If your strategy is, well, first of all, in general, if you are a medical device company where uh, uh, there is the potential for anything to be smart for you to collect more data, et cetera, you should be doing that in the first place. If you're not, you're probably not positioning yourself well for the long haul. Your stock price will probably suffer over the long haul, et cetera. You need to have a really strong data strategy, and AI is one of the things that is part of that in terms of what you can discover and how you can inject that back into the processes. So it's strategic. It should both a data strategy, a comprehensive data strategy, and AI is strategic for you. So then the question is, how are you going to get there quickly? What is it that you need to do internally to be able to do that? And then how are you going to find the right people? Those people are expensive to hire, and or the right partners um, that will help you to get there over the long haul.
Right. And I think the step one is using a vendor or a consultancy to help you with your data strategy. Yeah, every IoT company I've been involved with so far outside of the medical device space, I'll caveat that, found themselves at a point where the majority of their top line revenue came from the direct monetization of data. And every single one of those companies started out as a hardware company making some sort of a device, cloud connected. But over time, the software analytics, AI capabilities, and just the raw data, value of the raw data became so dominant to their business that the hardware almost became a secondary concern. In fact, a lot of these companies even ended up selling commodity hardware instead of manufacturing their own, and just focused entirely on building data companies, which is really what they were. And so if you have the ability to acquire data, even if you don't think of yourself as a data company, you should consider the fact that you probably have an opportunity, maybe if not being the majority top line, maybe it's a significant contributor to your top line. That is more significant to your enterprise than really what you would want from a third party to come in and help you out with, right? So yeah, use a partner to develop a digital strategy, but I think you have to graft that additional limb of the body onto you very early and deeply, right? Because it has the potential of being extremely impactful to the top line.
All right. So I think we'll wrap with one final question. I'm going to ask you each to give a couple words of advice to people. So when you leave this webinar, if you're thinking about this problem, the thing you should do in the next day, or the thing you should never do, is what? So Larkin, we'll go from Larkin. You last speak. So
I don't know, words of advice, eh? I would say, look for a vendor that is very transparent with you. Look for ways that they are trying to demonstrate to you that they are doing what you need done. And I don't mean that, they're going to promise fancy PowerPoint decks to you every week showing, traffic light status, but they're able to demonstrate regularly to you that you are deriving business value from the engagement, right? So make sure that they're open and transparent with you on progress, that they respond to feedback, and that once you get into the work with the vendor, that you're going to have regular feedback, opportunities to course correct, and that they will be adaptive for you.
Bernard?
I'm going to pass to Amir. I'll come back to me at the end.
All right.
I
Amir?
I was trusting Bernard that I can copy paste from you, but now he gave.
You can copy paste from Larkin if you want, you know.
So yeah, it's hard kind of like to condense it in one word or one sentence. But if I may, I would repeat and focus on partnership, right? To have a vendor that will act as your partner, and also this kind of um, flexibility or adaptability, as Larkin mentioned before, to grow together with you as a company with your transformation.
Yeah, I would add one thing. I think one of the sort of, I would call it a fairly naive way of looking at, at vendors is to say, I have bodies and hourly rates of a certain kind, and all of these are created equally. So I can outsource this to someone and save money. It doesn't matter how efficient or inefficient they are. Each body and each person is cheaper. And I think that is typically not something that is going to generate value for you. You're looking for, I would look deeper than just hourly rates in a lot of these things.
All right. Thank you for the advice. And thank you all for attending. Amir, thanks again. And I'm going to close with something really, really bad that's become our tradition the last few months. We ask a generative AI tool online to write a song for each of our webinars. And the first one was country music. The second one was sort of a 40s jazz song. So this one I think is sort of 80s pop synth rock. It's bad. So feel free to drop off before the end, but you should just listen to know for the musicians in the world, your job is still safe. Okay. All right. So here we go. Here's the official jingle of the webinar.
Wow, that's really bad, Randy.
I don't even think I can bear to play the rest of the song. Usually we kind of play it through the end, but this is so bad we make it up. But anyway, with all that,
I'm pretty sure I had that on a third generation copy of a cassette when I was in high school.
There we go. But I'll let you go with that because this one I have to say, even by bad standards, that is really bad. So thank you all.
I think you need a good vendor for music.
Yes, that's right.
But the price was really good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.